Greetings, Helldivers. Today I'm going to share my first impressions of the new toys we've gotten in the Democratic Detonation Warbond that has just dropped. I don't normally do first impressions of stuff, but as it were, the Warbond dropped on a day that I happened to be free, so I thought, why not? To set some expectations, we'll be covering the essentials of how each of the weapons work, how it compares to some of our other weapons if there is a relevant comparison, and finally, I'll also give my first impressions verdict at the end. This being a Raikon video will also mean that there will be some tables as well as the detailed profiles on each of the weapons. This won't be on the same level as my in-depth, full-blown reviews and guides, but the information I've collected and organized here should give you a much better idea about the performance of each of the weapons compared to the pittance of information you'd get otherwise. So let's get it on. Here's a table to show you how much each of the items will cost, as well as how many medals you'll need to have spent prior to unlocking the page they are found on. We'll start with the primary weapons first, beginning with the Adjudicator. Hearing this weapon was a marksman rifle, the natural first thing to do would be to compare it against the other marksman rifles, which I did. But after playing with it for 2 or 3 games, it didn't really feel marksman rifle-like at all. If anything, it felt more like I was using a Liberator penetrator in some ways. So of course, I put together a table to figure out if what I was feeling was right, and it turns out I wasn't far off. Stats-wise, the Adjudicator is more like an assault rifle than it is a marksman rifle. It has a similar fire rate and magazine size to the Liberator penetrator, and also has the same level of armor penetration. Where its marksman characteristics do show up is in its higher damage per bullet, but still lower than the other 2 marksman rifles, relatively high damage per mag, low ammo count, and high recoil. The Adjudicator is what happens when the Liberator penetrator wants to cosplay as a marksman rifle but only keeps the worst parts of both weapon types. Holding the reload button allows access to the weapon's enhanced configurations, offering you a choice of zoom levels and the ability to switch between semi-automatic and full auto. This gives it the potential to deal with enemies from both close and long ranges, but its performance is hindered by its recoil, not allowing you to effectively make full use of its 550 RPM. In my opinion, if it had a recoil value of around 30 or so, that would make the weapon feel a lot better to use. If you enjoy the Liberator penetrator, odds are you might enjoy using the Adjudicator, especially if you like to have a better time with precision gunplay. Next, let's take a look at the R36 Eruptor. The Eruptor is the hot item of the Warbond, the same way the sickle was for the cutting edge. It is a bolt-action sniper that essentially fires grenades at a limited range, capable of clearing groups of lesser enemies in a single shot, but also needs to rechamber around right after firing. Like the DCS, it feels heavy and unwieldy in your hands, almost like you've pulled out an anti-air gun off its installment and you've just realized that it's definitely too heavy to use, but you've already committed to the part and you don't want to look uncool in front of the other Helldivers. With only 5 rounds in the magazine, it is essential to make your shots count, which is something you might need a little practice with since this weapon's bullets have travel time. I don't have the exact details here, nor would this be the place for a deep dive, but I know Reginald has just put out a video exploring the finer points of the Eruptor. In it, he shows you what you can and can't do with the weapon, uncovering its potential in the battlefield as well as its limitations. I'll go ahead and add the link to that video in the description. Be sure to check it out if you want to learn more about the Eruptor. Finally, for the last of our primary weapons, we have the CB9 Explosive Crossbow. I was really excited to play with this weapon because I figured it would introduce an entirely new class of weapon to play with. But when you realize that it's an explosive weapon with a blast radius that needs to have its projectile drop accounted for, you basically have a primary version of the grenade launcher. The CB9 Explosive Crossbow has all the benefits and drawbacks of a grenade launcher, but also has better sights, making it a precision grenade launcher of sorts. It has pretty high damage for something with a decent blast radius, making it really good at taking down lesser enemies in groups. It has medium 1 penetration, same as the Adjudicator and Liberator penetrator, allowing it to be effective against slightly tougher enemies that also like to come in groups. Because of its drop, it is a skill shot weapon, which are my favorite kinds of weapons to play with. The only thing it can't do, despite being an explosive weapon, is destroy bug holes and fabricators, nor can it break container doors either. But that can be easily solved with the introduction of the next weapon, the GP31 Grenade Pistol. This weapon is probably one of the most anticipated weapons for anyone who loves using stun grenades, me included. Without looking at any of its stats first, The main draw of the grenade pistol is the ability to close fabricators and burrow holes without needing to depend on your support weapon or explosive grenades. Just the utility of being able to accomplish such a crucial task as a secondary weapon, which can be reloaded with regular ammo no less, makes it very high on the must-own list of weapons, if only because it gives your loadout more flexibility in terms of potential. Now that we've established the value of its utility, let's bring out its detailed profile to see what we're working with in terms of being an actual weapon. While it does have a hefty 600 explosive damage, the key stat to pay attention to is total ammo. The grenade pistol can only carry 9 rounds. So even though it does a lot of damage, you don't have the ammo to actively use it as an offensive weapon. Added to the fact that a resupply brick only restores 2 rounds, even if you were to use a supply pack to try and make it work, you'd need 4 bricks, a whole resupply drop's worth just to get all your reserve rounds back. So while the grenade pistol provides excellent utility and flexibility to your loadout, it comes at the cost of all but giving up your secondary as an active weapon. Also, as a note, unlike the grenade launcher support weapon, the grenade pistol's projectiles don't seem to bounce. Instead, they detonate as soon as they come into contact with a surface. So if you accidentally misfire nearby, you're probably going to knock yourself down or blow yourself up. Be careful when using this weapon. Finally, we arrive at the G123 Thermite grenade. This grenade is probably the biggest letdown in the Warbond. Before using it, I was thinking that this would be a very powerful grenade, affording you the ability to severely wound or even outright kill heavily armored enemies with a single toss. And if they didn't die, there would be a gaping hole where the thermite was set, allowing you to deal damage with weapons that wouldn't be able to penetrate heavy armor. After all, thermite can burn up to 2500 Celsius, meaning it can most probably melt through the organic carapace of chargers and bile titans, right? Right? No. It takes way too many thermites to kill anything meaningful, especially in the time it takes for the thermites to burn and explode. This is not even accounting for the bug where burn damage from the thermite doesn't work if you aren't the host. What the thermite grenade can and eventually will kill, 95% of the time, the impact grenade can do so too at a much faster rate. In the handful of games that I had the thermite grenade equipped, I wished I was using an impact grenade or a stun grenade instead. And in the games where I was happily using my stun grenade, I didn't even think about the thermite grenade. I had all but forgotten that it even existed. I feel that the mechanics of the grenade doesn't quite live up to the expectation of what it is supposed to do. I think the thermite needs to be more impactful if it's going to see any real use given our other options. Who knows? Maybe if I mess around with it some more, I'll find some unintended use for it that makes it usable. Time will tell. So, given that we've taken a quick look at all the new toys from the Warbond, what do I think about them? I think the weapons in this Warbond are pretty great overall. Of course, some items like the Adjudicator and the Thermite Grenade are a bit of a letdown considering the performance of other weapons in the Warbond, as well as our existing weapons that we have access to. As a whole, the addition of the Exploding Crossbow, the Eruptor, and the Grenade Pistol has widened the potential for crafting different loadouts, allowing us to enjoy the game with more variety without hamstringing yourself if you want to try messing around with different combinations of things. If anything, the Warbond has allowed us to go full Demo Man cosplay with the Exploding Crossbow, Grenade Pistol, and the Grenade Launcher support weapon. Do I think it's a good idea to run that loadout? Not really. Do I think it would be fun to lob grenades in every direction and terraform the surface of a planet we're fighting in with craters all over the place? Absolutely. Alright, that about wraps up this first impressions video. I was actually struggling to not automatically shift into deep dive mode, and I had to resist the urge to keep making comparative tables for everything because I wanted to know. But in any case, I hope this video has been useful in helping you decide what you'd like to work towards, or if it would be better to prioritize a different weapon from another Warbond instead. I will be releasing my full reviews and guides for each of these weapons, so if you're interested in probably learning way too much about something here, I invite you to drop a like and subscribe to follow along. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Over and out, Helldivers.